All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello, all. I am excited for a Friday show. Wow, there is a lot going on. We'll try to get to as much as we can. And look at that. It's Kim, everybody. Kim, how are you? Yeah, Kim is there at her post. And Albert is at his post.
Albert, thank you.
We are all at our respective posts. And you, listener, viewer, you're at your post as well. That's everybody. We're excited. And I have a lot on the show today. Saw a really cool offering from our pal, my favorite Britisher, Anthony Davis. And we'll bring on Anthony Davis to actually address one of the things he talks about regularly over on his Midas Touch show. I forgot to dress these under the shirt, which I meant to do. I blame you. I blame myself. I do. I agree. But I'll do it. I'll try to do it while somebody else is talking, or we'll figure it out. Michael Shore in the second hour. We'll get into politics. We'll look at the past week, the key delay in the Trump trial, also Trump gaining ground on Kamala Harris. It's true in the swing states. Donald Trump is gaining ground on Kamala Harris. I will give you a little bit of that. I mean, believe me, I don't relish bad news. I am making an announcement. It's a courageous announcement, probably. I don't want to be celebrated for my courage. I just want to display my courage. I am going to formally endorse Kamala Harris today, everyone. Yes, I am formally endorsing her. I feel as though, I'm sorry, there's just not much for us on the other side. So I don't know what to say beyond that. We will detail a little bit of what's happening with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. It's remarkable that our pal Donald Trump, who complains about the media, just like people in our chat complain about the media who are big Trump supporters, it's remarkable that he's actually coddled by the media. The media looks the other way on any number of things. I mean, my God. This guy was behind an insurrection. He is calling people these terrible names. He's really changed the nature of political discourse. And people who are right-wingers and support Donald Trump because they're really, it's a means to an end. In fact, we have an interview coming up next week, isn't it, Kim, with the right-winger who I bring on? Yeah. I just finished doing that yesterday. And I didn't press him. We had a very cordial back and forth.
He's a really nice guy.
He's very nice, and it's all there to be seen. And he'll be back. Yeah. But what you realize is it's not about Trump for them. It's about power. It's about keeping the courts. It's about he all but said that. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to read a little bit between the lines, but you'll hear that next week. So, Albert, what are we doing here now? Would you like me to get right into, can I get some other stuff while people kind of filter in? Do you mind?
And we have Anthony Davis off the top. I'll just let you know when he's here, so we can start with something else.
Okay, cool. So I have a wild story, and you'll forgive me for starting with something. I know everybody's champing at the bit for Trump, and we will play you his bizarre, unhinged, frankly, typical kind of riff that went off the rails. We'll play that for you. We're going to have Anthony Davis in a moment. But I did want to share with you this story that just jumped out at me because I think it's a sign of the times.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Federal prosecutors are charging, this really should be a law and disorder, but I'll just give you this as a one-off. Federal prosecutors are charging a North Carolina musician with creating fake bands and fake fans when he's producing music that then gives him on streaming services all of this audience, but it's fake. These are fake listeners, according to prosecutors.
What?
And penny by penny, you understand, he's compensated for this fake audience. Record companies are paying him for the fake audience. So fake songs created by AI, fake audience created by him, and real money, $10 million.
What?
Wow.
Yeah. Michael Smith is his name, and I know what you're saying. Michael Smith, what is he, some 17-year-old who did this all out of his parents' house? Is he a 23-year-old who did it out of his college dorm? And, now he's living large in the Ferrari that he bought with all of his money, and he's living in the Cayman Islands. No, he's 52 years old. He was accused yesterday of stealing royalty payments from digital streaming platforms for 7 years. He's a real musician, and he produced AI-generated music, played it billions of times using bots. He'd programmed the bots to listen to the music so that he could get money off of the streaming services.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
The artist had names like Callous Post, Calorie Screams, Calvinistic Dust. Produced tunes like Zygotech Washstands. Smith sold
weird.
Smith. This is what's that, Kim?
This is just weird.
It's evil genius. He was arrested. He faces charges including wire fraud and money laundering conspiracy. If convicted, he could get 20 years. It's the first criminal case involving musical streaming manipulation. And commercial success in the industry is, as you know, increasingly measured in terms of streams, in terms of listeners. And this guy's been on to this for 7 years. And again, modern popular music is digitally managed so that they watch the digital downloads. And if you can figure out a way to game that system, and that's what this guy did, you could be in for big money. Now his scheme is done. He and his fake bands and his fake audience will be in a real courtroom. So there's that.
The Mark Thompson Show.
What is it, Albert?
Oh no, I was just gonna mention it's a really wild idea for that guy.
and it actually might work until you get caught.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might
I
work.
thought you played that drop already. It's a wild idea.
Because what's to stop him if he made his own emails, made his own accounts, and then actually listened to it on the side on multiple computers? Is that the problem, or is it the millions? See, it's really weird, but it's a really good idea. I'm
Yeah, right. It's sort of like
why,
why,
thought of it.
Right. They do this stuff in YouTube where there's certain ways that their YouTube people, maybe that's that's one example I'm familiar with because we're on the YouTube platform and we're really phobic about, we don't want to change anything, we don't want to get help from anyone to boost our whatever, and that's probably why we aren't boosted maybe the way we could have been. We're not trying to game the system. But if you'll notice on X, on Instagram, etc., there are ways to boost your viewership and audience, and you can game that system. So to Albert's point, this guy gamed it, and it's kind of like, well, what's real and what's fake? These are bots, but they're the audience. You won't be compensated for your audience if it's bots. That might be the way to put it.
The great Anthony Davis is standing by now.
I know. I'm going to quickly, before we get to him, I wanted to...
The Mark Thompson Show.
Now I will tell you that I saw something on the great Anthony Davis's show, 5 Minute News. He's a friend of the show, my favorite Britisher, as you're aware. Play a little bit, if you would, Albert, of what I saw on his show.
A particular candidate. They aim to divide us against each other, fostering an environment of chaos.
Infiltration social media. This is that what he's talking about, the Russian infiltration
And
of social media. Go ahead.
confusion, where you say, well, I don't know what to believe or who to believe.
Now, this
If
is about
that's you, then
Trump. This is also about Trump disinformation as well. I'm so sorry. Okay, go ahead.
they have
Continue.
succeeded.
I won't interrupt him again.
The US influencers Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, and Benny Johnson have addressed allegations that the US content creation company they were associated with has been provided with nearly $10 million from Russian state media employees to publish videos with messages in favor of the Kremlin's interests and agenda, including over the war in Ukraine. The conservative media company today, Blaze Media, said it had terminated its contract with the YouTuber Lauren Chen. Chen and her husband founded Tenet Media, which received as much as $10 million from intermediaries to the Russian government, and then paid out large sums of money to conservative figures to produce online videos meant to influence the 2024 election. Talking points, the types of things that you would hear from Donald Trump or on Fox, all stemming from the Kremlin.
People sowing discord. I mean, that's what the Democrats did for 4 years when we were at each other's throats about Russia and whether or not Donald Trump was a Russian plant or a Putin puppet. The Democrats are the ones who sowed the discord.
The American influencers and media personalities acted unwittingly, according to the indictment. And this is part of the problem, is that people don't know that they are being coerced and manipulated. And to receive a payment of $400,000 a month, one might want to ask questions. Who has that type of money to spend? The 2016 election showed us how damaging foreign interference can be, and we cannot afford to let it happen again. Since then, our intelligence agencies and law enforcement have been vigilant in their efforts to safeguard our electoral process. However, the tactics being employed this year are more advanced. Russia is leveraging technology, misinformation, and media influence at unprecedented levels.
They're cultivating the field. Russia now, they're setting up a reason to crack down on social media and free speech before the next election, publicly accusing Russia of a sustained campaign. And if there are bad stories about to break on Kamala, you can be sure they're going to tell you it's Russian disinformation.
Okay, thank you. I had to hear that, Jeanine Pirro again. I'm going to take points away from Jeanine Pirro for having to look down at her talking points so regularly during that little run and that little riff. But I liked what Anthony Davis said. If there was only some way to bring him on, my favorite Britisher, everyone on your feet for the man who created the 5-minute news. He's on a streak. He's insanely popular now. So let's get him while we can. The great Anthony Davis, everyone. Yeah, you know it. Come on. I love that you've come here to our country with that smooth way of speaking. I could listen to you read the Cheesecake Factory restaurant menu.
Well, that's a long menu. That is quite the menu.
Exactly. That's why I chose it.
That would take a while. When I came to this country, I didn't have this accent, of course, because back in London, I used to talk like this, and that's what we were doing. Oh yeah, that's right. It was like that. And then when I came here, I decided to just step things up.
If that's really true, this is a great fact about you. Is that really true?
Never been anything like this.
No, it's
It
not.
depends if I was on the air or not, but all of my family, they all kind of speak a bit like that because, they're all from the East End and that's their
great.
kind of attitude. But I had elocution lessons, so everybody thinks I went to university. Oh, you must have gone to Oxford or you must have gone to Cambridge. No, I just had elocution lessons.
It's marvelous. Well, whatever you've done, don't touch a thing now. It's perfect. Okay. So I like that little run that you did on what's happening with essentially the infiltration of Russian talking points and divisive talking points into our media. And that's why I like the fact that you propped up Jeanine Pirro a couple of times for us to see. And now with these accusations that they have gotten to influencers. As you said, I thought so well, you're paying an influencer $400,000. You'd think that receiver of $400,000 might ask where that money's coming from.
$400,000 a month. I mean,
crazy.
A year you'd be like, well, that's a lot of money, but a month? Look, of course they knew where the money was coming from. These people, they were told that it was a private investor. That was something that I didn't put in the video, but they were told that the money was from a private investor. But you'd want to ask questions. I mean, you've got to be pretty naive to think that people have that kind of money to spread. And to me, that is a similar equation to Elon Musk finding $44 billion to buy Twitter. It's like, it's not worth that. Like, you don't have that kind of money. And he, as we know, he had to scrabble around to get that kind of money, including, being given some from foreign investors. So, that phrase, follow the money, it applies in every case, doesn't it?
Most certainly. And I know Dave Rubin, among others. I haven't talked to him in many years, but he came up through TYT, which is where I still do. In fact, I'm going to be on TYT today. I'm going to be on the power panel on TYT at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So anyway, point is, he's made his own pact with the devil or changed his act or is dancing to a different tune and has been doing that for a while. And it's been underwritten by various, it's suggested, right-wing concerns in this country, domestic right-wing concerns, Koch brother type money. But this adds a whole other layer. And as you say, it also adds a pretty insanely wealthy layer. Like, you can get rich in a hurry doing business with the Russians.
I don't know how much money people need, right? What are those influencers who are, one of them's a kid. I mean, how do you spend that kind of money? Because $400,000 a month, I mean, there's millions of dollars every year. I just don't see. I mean, I don't know. I'm just a socialist at heart. There comes a point with me where I'm like, how much do you actually need? Like, maybe you should give the rest away.
Well, billionaires have shown us that if you want the super yacht, you need a lot. No Contendo has a point. Janine Pirro's parents are Lebanese. I don't know if this is true. This is just a super chat, but I'm presuming it's true. No Contendo usually has pretty good information. Janine Pirro's parents are Lebanese. Trump should talk about her family's immigration process. Laura Loomer is Jewish, but 45 is pals with Nick Fuentes. It's true. I mean, I don't know if he's pals with Nick Fuentes, but he certainly doesn't disavow Nick Fuentes or his followers. I don't know about the rest of this. Look, if you really drill down on Trump, he's obviously everyone who will support him in any way, he views positively. I mean, in the moment, right? Nazis, theocrats, whatever it might be, despots. That's the magic of Trump. He's completely malleable.
But we are expecting his default to be normal and law-abiding. And that's where we've been going wrong, because he's never been normal and law-abiding. He's always been criminal, and he's always had deeply rooted mental health problems. He is not a well man. And so we've been judging him by the standards of ordinary and being like, he's so unordinary or subhuman or whatever you want to call it. And it just doesn't work. You cannot put him into the category of a normal person. The reason that he gets on with these despots and these criminals is because he is one. And that's how his mind works. He is a mentally compromised person. And if you study history and you read about Hitler's mental health or Mussolini's mental health, they all suffer from the same malignant narcissism that Donald Trump does. There is a pattern. And, I've been spending a lot of time recently focusing on the mental health aspect of this. Nobody talks about it in the corporate or mainstream media because it's like an unknown quantity. It's a subject that it almost kind of gets him off the hook. It doesn't get him off the hook because, you can still be criminalized for being mentally ill, but he should be in a secure institution. And that is where, no, seriously, I'm not even kidding.
I know you're not.
He is a screaming madman. And if you heard him making his speech in New York about the economy yesterday, especially that section on childcare, which I'm sure you're going to play in your show at some point, he makes no sense. And it is us projecting excuses to normalize him.
All right,
when
so
he's
I know
anything
you've
but.
spent a lot of time with Bandy Lee, and I've loved your conversations, sort of, in essence, deconstructing his mental problems and the way in which he sort of stepped off the curb. And I can't argue with any of that, except I will say that Donald Trump is just fundamentally unprepared. He never really has information. He's a BS artist, okay? He's a He's always been that way. So when I look, Albert, do you have it? Albert has it. This is, and again, you can look at it through the prism of mental illness. I look at it through the prism of utter incompetence and someone who's utterly ill-prepared for any question.
It's not one or the other. This is the point that I'm making. It's not a binary choice. Is he crap or is he mad? He is both. And the two are not mutually exclusive.
I'm suggesting that his blithering like this, his BSing, his just filling time, he's always been this way. He's a BS. He doesn't know anything of what he's speaking. But your point, I think, is a good one as well. It's just interesting to me that this is a result of you've done so many hours with Bandy Lee, and they've been great. I think it's interesting. You look at him now through the prism, I think, a bit more of his mental illness. And I look at him still through that prism because I've seen him for decades doing this crap, and through the prism of just
But he's
BS.
always been ill. He's always been mentally ill, right? He was born this way, right? It is unfortunate for him. And, nurture with that childhood, I mean, what do you expect?
Yeah.
So after the clip, I'll give you my translation of what I saw, which will probably be slightly different to yours. But bear in mind, he doesn't know what childcare is. You're playing the childcare clip, I presume.
Right.
He doesn't actually know what childcare is. He thinks that it is, I don't know, a nanny or something. I don't know. But what childcare is, what the payments for childcare is, respite for parents so that they can work, for example, he actually doesn't know what that is. So watch the clip with that in mind, and then you'll see why he's blustering, because he doesn't actually know what childcare means.
If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. I was we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, because look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country. Because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be taking in trillions of dollars, and as much as childcare is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people. But we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. It's about make America great again. We have to do it because right now we're a failing nation. So
He really just wanted to get to that. To the applause line. He had to get to the applause line. Now, go. See, to me, it just strikes me that he is BSing because he doesn't really know what the question was, as you've suggested, I think so correctly. He doesn't know what childcare is. He doesn't know what the question refers to.
Yeah.
So he's going childcare, people affording childcare. What I'm doing is building the economy. Everybody's going to have so much money. You'll be able to pay for other people's childcare type thing. What was your sense of it?
Well, I worked out just then that what he thinks childcare is that children have to be cared for. So he doesn't think of it in specifics. It's not about having somebody come in and be a nanny, for example, for that period. Couple of hours here, 4 hours there, the afternoon when kids come back from school, pick the kids up, get them home, get them fed so that parent can come home from work an hour later. He doesn't know any of that detail because, of course, he wasn't brought up that way. So he thinks, because he says it's not necessary in other countries, that is him being a racist, right? That is him thinking about these shithole countries that he refers to, countries where people have, are born into a nation with brown skin. And he thinks that they're savage and therefore they don't need to care for children. So he's thinking of like children sitting in the street, for example, and just being left while their parents go foraging for trash in a dumpster. That is what he is thinking, because that's how he sees the world, that America is civilized and the rest of the world, especially brown-skinned countries, are uncivilized. So from that clip, that time, because I've viewed it a few hundred times, it seems, he thinks that other countries don't need to care for children because it's not legal, but here legally you have to care for children. I mean, that is...
when he says especially in this country.
Especially in this country. So that is my analysis of that. But let's just go back to narcissism for a second, because, a lot of people have lived with narcissists, been married to narcissists, have them in their family. I actually have one in my family, which we're having to deal with, and it's not easy. It is a situation where the person is so destructive and their mental illness, whether it be malignant narcissism or covert narcissism, you can learn about this stuff. It's science, right? It's like it's medicine. There's real analysis behind it. And he is a malignant narcissist. So to him, that thing you do when you're young, if you don't want to hear something, you close your eyes, you put your fingers in your ear and you go la 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 la. That is the simplest explanation of what narcissism is, where you believe that if you close your eyes, put your fingers in your ears and la, that the world will just go on pause for a moment. And so that's what he was doing in that section. He is so completely full of himself, and he assumes that everybody who's listening doesn't have an intellect, has never studied, there's no expertise, no one can see through him, no one thinks he's bullshitting, that he can say anything and people will lap it up. And that is the tragedy of the narcissist. And the word of the day is gaslighting. That's what a narcissist does. They gaslight. And what he just did there was he gaslit the entire room. And why they applauded, I have no idea. Because,
well, that's why, to your point there, I would say that's why he's found his perfect home in the GOP. I mean, they'll continue to applaud him.
It's very, very sad to me that somebody who is so clearly mentally compromised and has no intellect. I mean, the guy, if he was to be tested, I don't know. I mean, I don't know much about the intellectual scale, but I mean, he'd be right down there with the chimps and the knuckle draggers. And yet, because of the TV show The Apprentice, he managed to create an image that people bought into. And so we know the story. I don't need to remind you of the story, but the fact that he's even allowed on the ballot, and the fact that somebody who talks like a imbecile is being applauded and given airtime, it is terrifying. And that is not a partisan statement. It just isn't.
They're clapping because they are rich people and want their tax cuts, says Carol. That is a room of Wall Streeters, that he's speaking. But he's not. That's not the G20. That's just a bunch of people who are pretty singular in that regard.
And his people probably led the applause. So, and that applause is infectious. So, that's something that we need to be deeply concerned about. But I'm telling you, he is not going to win the election. He absolutely isn't. And, but provided everybody goes out and does their civic duty and actually votes and doesn't put it off. And I hope it's not raining that day where you are.
Well, it's interesting that the polling, which I know is I think the polling has to be sort of frozen in time. I mean, how many more people are really there going, I just can't decide. The decision is so starkly different.
Everybody's decided. They're just not saying it out loud. So if you get asked by a pollster, how are you going to be voting, and you're a Republican, and your husband wants you to vote Republican, but you know that you can't vote for Trump, you're not going to tell anybody about it. You're just going to quietly go do it. That's my feeling about it.
There is some truth really to that. And the Bradley effect, it refers back to those who didn't want to say they were voting for the white candidate instead of Tom Bradley in the gubernatorial election in California. So if you take that Bradley effect, so we use that now as a shorthand for don't want to admit I'm voting for, now you fill in the blank. So your narrative is don't want to admit that I'm voting for Kamala Harris. Similarly, it could be, and I think this frankly holds more water because it's sort of you can become a social outcast if you advertise this in the wrong circles. I don't want to admit I'm voting for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if the Bradley effect really suggests that he's a little ahead of where the general polling is. The last thing I'll say, and then I'm going to let you speak. In 2 of the last elections, he was underperforming in polls to just over 3 points and just over 2 points, as you're well aware. And those 3 points and 2 points, that was a significant number of voters, enough to win in 2016, not enough to win, obviously, in 2020.
Well, we have 2 problems here, don't we? One is, who trusts the polls and are people who are being polled telling the truth? That's one issue. Second issue is we have the Electoral College to worry about, which is a system that can be played. So, of course, if the popular vote was counted, he would lose by a landslide, a country mile. But strategically, there is a way to play the Electoral College system, which they're attempting to do, although I read yesterday that his campaign has effectively dropped 3 swing states because they know they can't win in them. And that maybe will change things. But, last time Donald Trump won anything was 2016. At that point in time, he hadn't committed an insurrection against his own country. He hadn't stolen classified documents and lied about giving them back. He hadn't reversed Roe versus Wade and taken body autonomy away from all the women, 52% of voters in the United States. He hadn't been convicted on 91 charges of fraud and various crimes. He hadn't been convicted of rape with E. Jean Carroll. Or the Stormy Daniels story hadn't really been, in court. All that stuff has happened since 2016 when he last won anything. In 2020, he still lost by a reasonable margin. That is what people seem to forget, that, this is not water under the bridge. These are historic stories. And Americans, as I'm aware of, maybe you can correct me, they don't like criminals. They just don't like criminals. It's not the kind of person you would want to vote for. I'm not saying that MAGA Republicans don't like criminals, because I've seen their flags that they have that say, I'm voting for the felon. And those people you'll never change, but they are not the majority. Trump, as I see it, is a minority candidate who tells you how popular he is when there is no measurement to say that is true. And when it comes to the ballot box, I just don't think people are going to vote for that, which they now know is infected with this, real darkness. Americans don't want that. It's a very positive country.
It's great to hear you say that, and I think there certainly is a strong wave of positivity. I wonder to what extent that will prevail over the forces of darkness. The forces of darkness, I think, are the minority. In fact, if you look at the popular vote, consistently, those forces of positivity, if you want to break it into parties, and please, it overstates it a bit, but we are I'd suggest, a minority-ruled country right now, with the courts essentially taking over the place of legislation being passed in any sort of formal body of a legislature, right? You can't get anything through Congress, and so Supreme Court steps in and gets a lot of stuff done, and you're really living by the courts. And you've seen them really change life in America. It's a means to an end for a lot of GOPers. They focus not so much on the man. I just had a conversation I was mentioning before with a right-winger who's a very, charming, lovely, smart person, active in GOP politics for many years. He told me straight up, it's about the Supreme Court for me. He said, I'm not really paying attention to you. You guys can get jacked up on Donald Trump. He's just a means to an end. He didn't say means to an end, but it was clearly that's. So I'm wondering to what extent it's the agenda that extends beyond Donald Trump and independent of Donald Trump into the future for the GOP, and to what extent that will influence the election.
Well, that's just more for the list, isn't it? I mean, the Supreme Court, this far-right Christian nationalist Supreme Court, is another reason not to vote for Donald Trump. And it's so clear. And it's not just the reversal of Roe. I mean, the Chevron deal was also something that, for me, was a line in the sand. Not that I needed convincing. I was just going to say that back in that clip, when he talked about childcare not knowing what it was, he was actually describing a socialist program, right? He was promising socialism. We will look after you. There's going to be so much money in tariffs. We're going to completely look after you. Well, that goes against a lot of conservatives' view of America too, that they don't think that the government should look after you. They think that everyone has to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and just, do it on their own. And so with the problem with Donald Trump's meanderings, or what does he call it? The wave?
The weave. I've just learned about that this week.
Yeah, I think he's talking about his hairstyle. The wave, right? He is now so on the ropes that he's going to start to say things. Oh, he's already doing it. And then that clip was a perfect example. He's going to start to say desperate things like, we will cover all costs for all people. I mean, soon he'll be saying, we're going to give unhoused people homes just because he wants to appeal to anybody in the moment. He's desperate. I mean, are you aware of the phrase, the Dunning-Kruger effect? Because I think that's, right, that's a great phrase to describe Donald Trump. It's a cognitive bias where people with limited competence in a particular domain overestimate their abilities.
Well, they think they're the smartest ones in the room.
But he does. And I love that those clips that we've put together on Midas Touch where he says, I know more about wind and energy than anybody else. I know more about the law than anybody else. I know, and it's like, he describes wind turbines as windmills. Well, the people of the Netherlands might have something to say about that. This is the problem with him. He, because of the narcissism, will continue to put his foot in it, and as the stakes get higher, he will say more and more garbage that is going to put people off. And the biggest thing that's happened in the last week, in my opinion, is this analysis of his economic plan. This thing with the tariffs, it doesn't work. The foreign national countries are not paying the tariffs. The U.S. Consumers and wholesalers are paying the tariffs.
Well, and by the way, he's already done it once, and you'd think it was if not explained to him, it was probably available. That fact, this is a bold fact. That, right. As you say, it's not a penalty applied to those who are selling the goods. It's a penalty applied to those buying the goods.
And that's his entire plan for solving all of America's problems is tariffs on foreign nations, and he can't decide if it's going to be 100% or 200%. Well, there's quite a big difference between those. So he is exposing himself as having no policies. He has no economic or fiscal plan for the country. He's not very good at math. He doesn't know anything about anything, clearly, and that for people who have money, I'm talking about Wall Street, I'm talking about those billionaire donors, that is going to be a problem for them at some point between now and November. And we only have, 6 weeks or something? I mean, it's not far.
I mean, the one thing I would say is that they want their tax cuts, which is pretty significant. Wall Street does.
Yeah.
I think they don't really focus on his economic agenda because they know that it's really just a paper agenda that you can, cut right through. There's no real policy.
Yeah.
His outlook is not underpinned by any political philosophy. He's just a guy who can be bought and paid for. He's said it. Give me the money and I will give you the legislation. He said it to oil company executives.
He says it all out loud. But, Wall Street is not the majority of voters. Wall Street is what we know. It's the 1%, right? 1% is not enough to get you over the line. And so I genuinely believe that we have been dealt a confidence trick over the last decade, because it's a decade that we've been listening to his crap. He won once. There is no evidence of him winning anything since. And we know that that particular year, 2016, people didn't know about the Russian interference, which has been exposed again in the last week. People didn't know about Cambridge Analytica. They didn't have James Comey making a speech the week before the vote to
that
say
was huge.
that Hillary
And also
Clinton was being investigated.
And those who wanted something different, he looked like a change agent. I mean, to me, it was an obvious con and a ridiculous. He was not really a change agent of any kind. But people needed something to shake up the snow globe, you know.
So if you look at the trajectory of his star, it has only risen because he has told us how popular he is. He can't get an audience. The same people go to the rallies. You know, they travel the country to go to the rallies. So, you know, he really is a master showman. But that's where his abilities end. And if you have fallen for it, if you're like, oh, he's very popular, you know, a lot of people like him, that is not a qualitative answer. You know, a lot of people liking him doesn't mean they're going to vote for him. They might like the fact that
but
he's
let me just push back.
showman.
Last thing, I know we're late, Albert, but I just wanted to say this to that. And I love the sunny outlook with which you greet the election in terms of a likely Kamala Harris win. But I will say that people do vote for this je ne sais quoi, this thing. I do like him. I don't know. I know he's flawed, but I like how he's a plain talker. He talks smack. You know, he doesn't take any. He gives it. And there is, in the problem with the American election is, you know, they'll let anybody run, right? You can be a felon, not able to vote in the election, but you're able to run for president. I mean, this is a high school election, but that's the way we run them here. You know, Anthony Davis?
Sadly, I do.
I mean, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute. 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that?
Yeah.
But we didn't even mention COVID.
Injection inside or almost a cleaning.
I'm getting a COVID treatment right now, please.
Does a tremendous number in the lungs, so it'd be interesting to check that.
Yeah.
Does a tremendous number. But we didn't even mention COVID. 1.2 million people dead. You know, that is also going to affect people's vote. They know that he completely screwed that up. We know that he only got half of the vaccines out.
You say they. I hope enough theys remember that. I mean, the voracious appetite of the news organizations and, you know, the news cycles are just... I think a lot comes down to this quality that was mentioned yesterday by a political consultant we had on, which is sort of that alpha quality. And I think Kamala Harris will have to show a little bit of that alpha quality in the, quote, debate, the TV show that masquerades as a debate on the 10th, you know, next week.
She mustn't do that show. I mean, it's just the worst advice for her to agree to go on a stage with a convicted felon who is a gaslighter and a narcissist.
And a showman.
And a showman. She is going into the lion's den. And unfortunately, I mean, I'm pleased that it's early and there's still a few weeks to recover, but I don't think that she will poll as well off the back of that. He is going to destroy her because that is what he can do. He can't run a country, but he can go on television and be a bully and a steamroller, especially next to a female, especially next to a female of color, especially next to somebody he doesn't respect.
I've said it repeatedly. I challenge the narrative that I hear over and over again, which is, oh, Kamala Harris is going to wipe the floor with him. No. Oh, well, she's a prosecutor. This isn't a courtroom. There are no rules here. I mean, he will, I believe, do very well in this, quote, debate, because it's not a real debate governed by any rules where one has to adhere to any facts.
These things should be organized by Congress, right? So the debate should happen in the halls of Congress. They shouldn't be happening in a Dancing with the Stars style studio with a shiny floor and lights and music and play on music. They should be boring and civic. They should take place in the same room where they have congressional hearings. They should be seated behind desks in a very boring fashion, and then they should allow the TV cameras in. But having the networks run these things and organize them and design them, They are basically just creating Saturday night television.
Well, it used to be run by the League of Women Voters, and they squeezed them out. There was a far more objective approach to it anyway than there is now. As you suggested, now it's animation packages and music sweeps and a big jib camera. It's show business. Go ahead, Kim.
If you think that Trump is mentally struggling, if you think that he can't answer a question without his narcissism playing a role, if you think that I guess the question is, why would Kamala Harris and her team have fought against muted microphones for this debate if they didn't think that all of those things were going to come into play and that basically he would do himself in with his own words?
Well, there is a societal pressure, cultural pressure to take part in debates. And I think that, it'll do more damage if Kamala Harris is like, actually, I don't want to debate. This country would be like, she's weak, she's typical female, all that horrific abuse will come, a lot of it from Donald Trump. So unfortunately, she's already committed to something which she probably knows is not healthy. And, this stuff of her being a prosecutor and that's why she'll be good at it, that has not come from her. That has just come from, opinion pieces, talking heads and people that don't really know much about this environment. The muted mics thing, it doesn't make any difference. When that light is on or off, he's going to talk anyway, and she's going to hear it. And if she is not experienced enough in that environment, which I don't think she is, she will think that she has to stop talking because he's talking even though we can't hear him. And that is going to make her look weak as well. So it's going to be a car crash. It's going to be a car crash whatever happens.
I do think it will be something of a car crash, and a lot of people are going to see it,
Yeah.
Love the 5-minute news. Love what you're doing. Love you. Love your accent. Keep the accent and everything else. Oh, I love it. Yes. How about it for my favorite Britisher and one of our favorite guests, Anthony Davis, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, big flourish, Albert. Thank you. Oh, I loved it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We're way late, but what a good reason to be late. He's terrific. Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
Gives you that optimism that you like so much, Kim.
He does.
I'm here to knock that optimism off the trees. That's right.
I don't feel like I agree with him on most things, but when he's talking about a car crash of a debate, I still feel like she's got a real advantage in this one. I mean, look at what he did with the childcare thing.
That wasn't a debate.
He
was on stage by himself.
But he has a hard time speaking off the cuff.
Look at the first.
He starts going down a winding.
What are you talking about? He does an
road.
hour and a half off the cuff at all of his rallies.
Yes, and every single time there are clips of him just going, "Whoa! What did you just say that?"
The thing about a debate is you're debating against someone else, and so I think he can look like a big dude just by force of personality, the same way he won the presidency and won an election. The force of personality with Trump is powerful. Why do you think he got so many people to do his dirty work for him? He is a bully, and he can bully his way on stage. And there are many ways to bully. You can bully rhetorically. You can bully physically, meaning just your physical presence.
But don't you think
I'd suggest to you you're taking him, you're trivializing him based on what you see as kind of his blithering idiocy. And I think that really is a mistake.
What about the different dynamic between a man and a woman on stage, where if he bullies her, he looks like an abuser, a jerk?
Is that
does he
right?
Not? Well, does he not have
ask Hillary Clinton about that?
Does he not have to be? And he did. I mean,
well,
women around the country were like,
"Who won that debate, Kim?
Yeah,
who won that debate with Hillary Clinton?"
I don't think he did. Do you think he did?
I think he held his own to those who wanted to see a strong male figure.
I think he came
off
looking like
figure.
a total
I love
creep.
Yeah, I mean, again, he reads as a creep to you, but again, there are people who just see a strong man and they like, or a strong presence, if you want to think. I mean, I think that alpha is a better word. I love that It was used yesterday by Richard Green, the political consultant, who came on and who was talking about Americans and many people respond to the alphaness of a candidate. And that alphaness is going to have to be something that is on display on the debate stage from Kamala Harris. She's going to have to match his alphaness. Now, I think she can. I think she's a strong and highly competent person. But I just think this idea that, oh, he's a blithering idiot. Wait till he gets up there and he says a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense. He did that in the first debate. Who won the first debate against Joe Biden? Trump did. And Biden, I'm going to say, well, Biden was having a meltdown. He didn't know where he was. Fine. Did anybody call out Trump on all of his stuff? No. His strategy for just spewing things that clearly aren't true, for taking credit for things that the opposition did, it will be in play again. And you'll be challenged, I'd suggest, to try to keep up with tagging them all and knocking them all down, all of the misinformation and phony facts. You'll be challenged to do that in real time. I think it's a challenge, Kim. I don't. Now, you may be right.
Women have to be, I think women, and I know we shouldn't have to be, but we have to be careful, because if you're saying it comes down to who's the more alpha, then if she has to be alpha, she has to also watch that she doesn't come off looking like the B word. Right?
I agree, and you know how I feel about that. I think women have a much tougher climb in this culture, not just in politics, but in this culture, in the executive suites, in every interaction. Women, sadly, are placed into categories and are evaluated in ways that are completely unfair, and that guys get away with behavior all the time in those categories in ways that women just cannot. So you're right, but Kim is right. Play to your strengths, says B.A. Ware, not to those of your opponent. Okay. Trump is not alpha, says R. Herrera. I don't know. He's something. He's mansplaining, said Roger. Is that what I'm doing, or that's what Trump's doing? Trump fact-checking Trump is a full-time job, says Elisa. Ain't it true? Yeah. Randy says, go watch the first 10 minutes of CNN's analysis after the first debate. It was not about Trump's lies and inaccuracies. It was the realization that Biden needed to drop out.
Well, that time we had President Biden appearing so old and fragile that the focus was on that. I mean, it didn't matter what Trump said. It was like, whoa, what's happening to the president? Right? Yeah. This time he goes up against someone who's young, who's strong. So possibly he's going to have to bring substance. And I don't think it's possible for him to do that.
Well, there it is. Agreeing with you is no contendo. Kamala isn't Hillary. Kamala Harris will check him on stage. That Bay Area is going to come out. Yeah. How about Bay Area?
She's going to bring the Oakland.
Yeah. She's going to body check him.
Now that's a debate.
Roger says, Kim, you are right. Two guys are mansplaining right now. Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Well, that's, dude, that's a bad bust on me, Roger. I'm going to yellow card you on that. Yeah, that's a yellow card. Well, it's my show. What am I supposed to not represent an opinion and argue? That's what I do, pal. That's really not. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna warn you on a yellow card, Roger. I love you. I don't recognize you from here in the past. So I'm going to not.
Which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Thank you. I mean, come on, dude. What am I supposed to do? Just not play it? Please. I think Kamala just needs to be classy and intelligent, says Karen Cooper. She needs to appeal to women and intelligent people. It's called gish galloping, says OLM. Exactly. You know, that's just the fire hose of lies. It's gish galloping. Look, please don't misunderstand me. It's true, tend to look at, I worry. I come from a position of worrying. So I really don't like to get into that rah, let me tell you how we're going to win so big and she's going to do well. I do have my anxiety provoked by some of the aspects of Trump and some of the aspects of this country and the body politic of this country that I feel is responding to the wrong things, which is the alphaness and all of that stuff, and sort of their creation of this image around this guy. I'll say this, and then we've got to do Florida. I don't know what our story is. Albert's, working with a calculator now to try to figure out how we're going to get it all in. But I will say this. I think, and this is very important to keep in mind, probably, Trump isn't new anymore. We've lived through him once. And women did have their freedoms over their own body and decisions that they can make taken away. From his Supreme Court, he talks about it. We have seen his Supreme Court take other agenda items and act on them. We do know about Project 2025. We do, and again, it depends, though, on the degree to which you're read in as a voter on all of these things. But we don't view Trump in a kind of tabula rasa way where he's whatever we want him to be. We've seen what he does, right? We know that Trump is beholden to right-wing interests, that he's going to act on Federalist Society lists when it comes to appointing justices, and that he is a divisive figure, and that charm about the division has worn off to some extent. And so you can, and I've left out violence and undermining an election. I've left all of that. I mean, it was really an out-and-out coup attempt on several levels. Legal, that is to say, through the challenging and then moving stuff around on the Justice Department. He replacing the Attorney General. Just tell them. It doesn't actually have to be an investigation. Just say that there is an investigation on election irregularities. I mean, these are things, and then ultimately the attempted violent takeover of the Capitol. So I think when you put it all together, it's possible that Trump loses. And I just worry about the Electoral College, because to me, it comes down to the state of Pennsylvania, and I see ways in which in the state of Pennsylvania he could win. And I guess that's what ultimately worries me. So when I get through the debate conversations and what people are sparking to when they look at Donald Trump and they look at Kamala Harris, I ultimately understand that all of this is going to come down to me, to Pennsylvania. And I see ways in which Donald Trump can win Pennsylvania, and that scares me. And again, he'll lose the popular vote. He'll be an unpopular president, if you want to think of it that way. But if he wins Pennsylvania, it's probably a red carpet to the Oval Office. So, Albert, I'm...
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'm someone who screwed you in...
a couple things before we get to Florida. Kim, can you just turn down your headphone volume?
Oh, sure.
We're hearing Mark just a little...
Yes,
feedback.
Kim, we've discussed this issue before, and I don't know why we can't get
just
a
a
hold
little
of
bit.
it.
I blame you.
All right. Well, probably my fault somehow. But anyway, Albert, what else is it, Albert?
And just a little more, Kim. We're still hearing an echo on your end from Mark.
Kim, don't make us come over there, Kim. And
Albert, thank you.
And actually handle the microphone situation for you. Am I mansplaining right now, Roger? Is that what I'm doing with the mansplaining for Kim? I think that's that better, Albert?
I blame you.
All right.
He is muted, but we'll just have to find out. I'll give you some feedback in the private chat, Kim. If you
could you do a little bit more of the show, Kim, with your mic muted? Would you?
Who is having?
Would you have a problem with that? I'm just saying.
Now that's mansplaining. Yes,
it would help with
what?
I'm just saying. It's a suggestion. I'm spitballing right now.
There's never been anything like this.
All right, let's.
I've chopped down Florida a little bit. Quick Florida here, and then we'll get to Michael Shore whenever he joins.
Turbo Florida. This has never been done before. I'm kind of excited about it. And then Michael Shore will join. Smash the like button. What a bunch of stuff we've done. Hit that like button for us if you would. It helps us in the world of YouTube. It costs you nothing. If you're new here, you can try subscribing. Try it. It's also free. And you'll hit the notification bell when you do that, if you would, please. You'll know when we drop a new video. We don't drop a ton of videos, but this is a live show. 2 hours every day. 2 to 4 o'clock Eastern Time. 11 to 1 o'clock on the West Coast, which is where we are. Our home coast is the West Coast, but we love wherever you are that you have joined us. So smash the like button
with your iron rod.
Okay. On Fridays, we do it. We showcase the bizarre world of Florida. This is Friday Fabulous Florida.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
We start in Florida with a Florida man asking the deputy to test his drugs after burglarizing a home. He thinks his drugs are bad. Timothy Gunter, arrested last week in Lake County. Burglary and meth possession. Broke into a home because he heard dogs barking inside. Later, he asks a responding deputy to test his meth because he thought something was wrong with it. 34 years old. Here is his picture. And if you're new, we have the Mark Thompson Show booking photo scale. It's a 10-point scale, 10 being the best. You can share with us what you think. He has the meth eyes, for sure.
He has the crazy eyes, but he's not a bad-looking fellow.
I was going to say the same thing.
Girl, you just woo.
Yeah, you are a woo girl.
It's too bad he's gone down this meth path.
Well, you know, you could clean him up and dress him up and take him to the next big news gala with you.
I could indeed.
What do you want to give him on the scale, though? You have to boil it all down.
I'm going to give him an 8.
No? Wow, that's pretty strong. That's an 8. I'll give him a 7. So the Gunter shows the deputy a plastic baggie containing a clear crystal-like substance, later tested positive for meth. He admitted to breaking into the victim's home because he could hear dogs barking inside. The person in the house provided deputy with video evidence showing Gunter looking into the victim's window first. That's what you want to do before you break into a house.
You got to make sure there's something you want in there.
Yeah.
You know?
Then deputy said he broke down the door and entered the home. He's now cooling it in jail.
That's too
A Florida
bad.
man, what's that?
That's too bad.
Yeah, sad. I mean, he'll get out at some point.
Yeah.
Florida man tries to pass off a DUI by swapping seats with the passenger after a crash.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
Tricky.
How many of you, though, have thought of this? Maybe you've been in one of these situations. Florida man taken to jail, though. This didn't work out for him. Driving under the influence in Volusia County. Lance Green, he's 59, of Port Orange, arrested on charges of DUI and resisting an officer. He did it without violence, according to the police report. It was 9:40 in the evening. Deputies responding to a crash at the intersection of Williamson Boulevard and Taylor Road. According to the report, both vehicles traveling westbound when a Ram pickup truck rear-ended a Ford truck. It was truck-on-truck crime. A passenger in the Ford injured, but declined medical attention. Green was driving the Ram, swapped seats with a female passenger. They tried to play off Susan Green as the driver and not Lance Green as the driver.
Mm-hmm.
Lance
He's got
Green
going here is a situation.
He showed signs of impairment when he tried to get out of the vehicle. And you can see him there in his booking photo. And again, he's looks like a happy guy.
That doesn't look like a booking photo.
No, it doesn't. It looks like a Facebook profile photo.
Yeah, it does. He's got a nice head of hair, this guy.
A great head of hair. He's got a good expression on his I'm going to give him an 8. Yeah, I really am.
I agree.
There you go. Anyway, he is booked into jail, and he can tell everybody down at the station.
Yeah, he kind of looks like, yep, you got me. Yeah, I tried.
That's right.
No Contendo says a Ram and an F-150, you already know, dueling banjos.
Yeah, it is true. Kind of does write itself after that. Well, a Florida man who was intoxicated does something while intoxicated, which is maybe even worse than driving or as bad. I'd say worse. Fires a gun. Yeah, more than one time. Bullets were flying. The Volusia County Sheriff's Office saying that Families quickly took cover, called 911 for help. The people in the house, his family, they're in DeLand, Florida. They were hiding in the bathroom, according to police reports. In the 911 call, the call came into, "My girl and my son are in the bathroom laying down." The adults and children were evacuated from the home. Deputies began to search the area for the shooter. After a brief search, it was discovered that the shooter turned out to be an intoxicated neighbor on nearby Virginia Avenue, shooting at a tree in his backyard.
Oh, my God.
When deputies confronted this man, you're looking at him, 38-year-old Alex Kudlak, he told them, "Yeah, I'm a dumbass." He was arrested and booked into county jail. 1 count of shooting into a dwelling, 1 count of using a firearm, and 2 counts of child endangerment, and et cetera.
This is wild.
So everybody was hiding from the gunfire, didn't know where it was coming from. By the way, what did you give him?
I'm going to throw down with a 5.
Yeah,
he
I
looks,
thought it was
he looks about as dumb as he is.
5 or a 6.
Yeah.
And finally, a Florida man continues to adjust to life after losing an arm in an alligator attack.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nice. I was hoping for a gator story.
Yeah, it's a sweet tale of a Florida man who lost an arm in an alligator attack a year ago. He's adapting to his new life. Jordan Rivera
Unfortunate.
looks back at the pond outside a bar in Port Charlotte. He doesn't really remember anything that happened after he got too close to that pond.
Yikes.
He woke up in the hospital. It was just like a flash, he said, and then I was in the hospital. Witnesses called for help, and they tell me I have no arm and that an alligator had gotten me. I was like, an alligator? The last thing I would have thought in the world, he says. He says, I still can do pretty much most things people do, but maybe a different type of way, he says. I realize that I have one arm, but that doesn't let me down. I don't let anything hold me back. I wake up, and it's a new step for me. So he's greeted his life in a new way and with a new aplomb, I would say. And bravo. Yeah,
This is the Florida way, you know?
And I will say this also, the arm he still has, it's a good-looking arm. Yeah.
So what happened to the other arm? Did the gator eat it?
Yeah, the gator chomped it. He, as I recall, Albert, and you can, because you curate these segments, Albert, I believe he went down after being in the bar for a while to go to the bathroom. He was peeing in the pond, or you know what I mean? He went down to the edge of the pond to do that, and it was night.
I think we included this in our Florida a while back.
I remember it.
Yeah.
That's why he doesn't remember how he lost an arm, but probably best he didn't remember that moment.
He did get chomped, though. Yeah. We don't want to pick a favorite in this turbo edition of Friday Fabulous Florida. We must pick a favorite, and I'll just remind you quickly of the stories that you've heard. The Florida man who asked the deputy to test his bad drugs. He thought he wasn't sure his meth was really methy enough. He had burglarized the home after hearing barking dogs. The Florida man who tried to pass off the DUI by swapping seats with his passenger after he had crashed into another truck. I'm sorry, his name, not important. I'm a dumbass, said a Florida man accused of shooting a gun while intoxicated. The bullets hit the home of his neighbor. And finally, the Florida man, it's a heartwarming story, adjusting to life after losing an arm to an alligator outside a local bar a year ago. Again, we don't want to pick a favorite, but we must. The bylaws of the show require it. Kim, what is your favorite, please?
I have a hard time not picking I'm a dumbass. However, I have to go with Arm Gator Guy.
Arm Gator Guy. Kim is a sucker for the emotion that was in, she likes that after school special quality. How about you, Albert?
The chat loves the bad drugs. The bad drugs has 56% of the vote. I like the DUI story because no one got hurt and it was a wild idea. And he was very pleasant in his booking photo. So it's a perfect storm of good things that could have happened poorly.
I'm with the chat. I think it was the cops. Can you test my meth? It just seems like it's not methy enough. I like that for the favorite today. But one-arm push-up guy, says Phineas. Yeah, very strong. I think it's true. Randy says if that guy lost an arm to a gator when he was peeing at the edge of a pond, he's probably lucky he didn't lose anything else. I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
That's the truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Officer,
mean,
test my meth, says Katie Lynch. Thanks, everybody. That's Friday Fabulous Florida for today.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now here.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I wanted to tell you as we swing into the second hour, you'll tell me when Michael Schur gets here, won't you?
He is
he's
standing
here?
by.
Okay. Well, then, so much for that plan. I was going to quickly, I guess I'll do it after Michael. I don't want to keep him waiting. But I did want to recognize two areas in which we're really supported. I know we make a big deal of all of you who are so great with super stickers and super chats and who in real time help support the show because we're a crowd-funded show. We're basically an NPR PBS model where, it's sort of, if you like this show and want to see it continue, please support it. You can do it through PayPal and Patreon. So if we don't get Patreon and PayPal support, we go away. And many of you have stepped up, and we run your names at the end of the show, in the crawl every day, because every day, literally, we understand that you support the show. So I was going to call out, and I will call out before the end of the show, some of the people who are part of our Patreon and PayPal community. I'm so very grateful. And a lot of you come in for, some really respectable amount. There's no amount of money, high or low, that is bad. But wow, we've really had some great support from our audience, and it means a lot. So you can visit themarkthompsonshow.com, click on Patreon or PayPal, and that'll take you to links to contribute, or take you all the ways to contribute also are under all the videos. So it's always awkward for me to ask for support because I come from a free broadcast model, but I really do appreciate the support. And it allows me to buy lunch for Michael Schur as a sign of our gratitude every 3.5 years. So that's a really great.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It's a great tradition that we started 3.5 years ago. Let me welcome him on now. He has forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever know. He's the great Michael Schur, everyone.
Well, my free lunch happens, with greater frequency than a presidential election. So
that's
slightly.
Indeed. So there is a major event coming up next week. I mean, for all of the other issues, it does seem as though this debate, as it's called, is the thing that might push the outcome of this election one way or the other. Is that a fair appraisal, or is the debate going to fall into the same category as everything else, which is you get what you want from it? It bolsters your candidate, your side. You're going to read the tea leaves the way you want to read them.
Yeah, I mean, my predictive analysis of these things is that, it could go wrong for one person. There aren't victories to be scored, generally speaking. There are losses to be tallied. And so to that end, it could happen. Most debates are neutral. The people who like their candidate like them, and the people who don't. And so I think that it's, but it has that potential because you have the candidates side by side. It'll be certainly interesting because you've never seen Harris and Trump opposed to each other publicly. So there is that. And look, I think that there is more to lose for the vice president in that she hasn't been seen before. So she has a bar. We already know what we're going to get for Donald Trump. Could she surprise in a good way? Absolutely. But I don't think that pushes much. And so I think getting through these debates, it's also September 10th, 2 months before the election. I know we're close to the election, but September 10th doesn't feel close to the election on election day. And so there's a lot that can happen between now and then. But yeah, I would certainly agree that it's super important in that something could happen. A lot of eyes are going to be on both of these people.
The other thing that you remind me of in sort of in an implicit way when you talk about Kamala Harris is that I'm hearing, and I mentioned this in the last hour, and I hear this a lot, she's going to mop the floor with him. She's going to, and I hear it from people who want Kamala Harris to do some floor mopping with Donald Trump. But I always caution, I don't think so. I mean, I think Trump is a television performer. I think he's very at home here.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, like, name a debate where someone mopped the floor with somebody, right? I mean, you go to JFK, right? And on TV, he mopped the floor because he was handsome and dashing, and Vice President Nixon at that time had sweat beads, and it didn't look good. People who listened to it actually thought Nixon won that debate. Again, that's 64 years ago. But truthfully, nobody mops the floor with people in debates, generally speaking. I can think of one debate where Hillary Clinton was running for a Senate seat against a man whose name I should remember in New York, and whoever the Republican was at that time did absolutely terribly in that debate. And Hillary Clinton won that debate, but it was also based on some sort of sexist gestures and insinuation that lost that debate. On substance, nobody wipes the floor in debates. It's unquestionable that Kamala Harris has a greater grasp of the intricacies of legislation than Donald Trump does. But that's not what these debates are about. The people whose floor gets mopped are the people who make a mistake. And you look at Gerald Ford, you look at Dan Quayle, you look at Joe Biden most recently in the debate this year that totally changed the landscape of the debate. So I agree with you, Mark. Nobody wipes the floor with people in debates. And if they do, it's on a very local level in, mayor's races and school board races.
And just to button it out, I would say also, Kamala Harris has some additional pressure for the reasons that you've mentioned. In other words, she hasn't really gotten out there in a big way in an environment like this. I think you put it like we don't know her sort of in this way. But also I'd say that expectations are high for some of the other reasons that you mentioned, which is that we know she knows stuff and Trump doesn't really know stuff. Somehow we're okay with that as a country. We discounted it, the power of it, but more to the point when it comes to the debate, her expectations for performance, I think, are fairly high.
No question. And Donald Trump has gotten away with being sexist. Hillary Clinton didn't get away with being condescending to that sexist person. And so Kamala Harris has another bar, but simply by being a woman, that she has to try not to condescend to somebody who is so easily condescended, and so that she has to walk a tightrope that is very unusual, mostly because of her opponent. If she were running against Mitt Romney, it would be very different because she wouldn't be running into that kind of an issue.
Now to some of what Trump has said. Some of what Trump has said, and a lot's made of it, we can play the clip here and again in a moment, is associated with him, in my judgment, sort of not really knowing what he's going to say and sort of BSing his way through the way he BSes his way through a lot, just kind of killing the clock till he can get to an applause line. We'll play you that in a second. But what he did say, and it reflects his newfound relationship with Elon Musk, is that he wants to hire Elon to head up auditing the entire government. It's an efficiency commission that he wants to put together. Now, this was an idea provided by Elon Musk, and it takes a guy who's already insanely powerful because of his wealth and a hold on this country through Starlink and through SpaceX. In other words, our country is having to lease technologies from him already. And it now puts him in a tremendous position of power, again, potentially were Trump to win, with control over many of the levers of government based on the fact that they're efficient or not efficient in Elon Musk's opinion. And I'm certain that many of his judgments would go on some level to being self-serving.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess so as well. That's a far-fetched thing. It assumes Elon Musk is happy to do that. B, it assumes that he's the right person to do it, and it assumes that there's going to be a Congress that's just going to allow that to happen, and that they're going to be furnishing to this third-party entity all the information that they need to furnish him in order to do the work he needs to do. I think it's a lot of bluster, and what it shows is the continued cronyism of Donald Trump and the continued effort to endear himself to powerful people who are not well liked. And I look at Musk, I look at Kim, I look at Putin. There's the people that have chips on their shoulders. He wants to be simpatico with, and that's that act is growing tired to a lot of people. So and he was speaking to the New York Economic Club, which is a club that's interested in seeing lower deficits and lower taxes, and so that's the sort of thing you would say that that you could say to that group that would make them happy.
The coalition that seemed to be unshakable, and they seem to get a lot in a kind of transactional relationship that they have with Trump, is the evangelicals.
Right.
They've
got more than any interest group, really.
Thank you. And now, as Trump begins to waver a bit on the abortion question and on women's reproductive freedoms, he was cornered a bit on it when it came down to the Florida vote. As you know, the Florida vote essentially was going to move back in the state of Florida, essentially outlawed abortion in the state of Florida. He was got a 6-week abortion ban is what it was. He's starting to waver a bit, depending on the audience to whom he's playing. So now the evangelicals are worried. He still doesn't necessarily need to worry about losing them, right? I mean, they know that he's the only port in their storm.
Yeah. I think that, people for whom pro-life is their number one issue are not going to leave the Republican Party. They shouldn't, really. I mean, the Democrats are not going to be good curators of that. But the energy with which they will turn out for him in states where that matters is put into question because of his flip-flopping. I think there is a wink and a nod that he has with evangelicals that supersedes any of this, kind of idea of, oh, well, they're gonna hedge on him because he's flip-flopping on this issue in Florida. They have a choice, ironically, and they are. The choice for them would still be clear. It's a question of whether they come out and they're energetic about it, or they feel like they've gotten as much as they can get and they're not going to get any more from this guy.
Albert, do you have the clip of, and now it's achieved a lot of visibility, but boy, it really does, to me, speak to how Trump doesn't really understand. People are saying they didn't hear the question or whatever. He didn't understand what the question was.
No, he didn't. He was all over the place on it. And
he didn't know what child. He didn't know what child. We covered this last hour. He doesn't know what childcare is. He doesn't. Yeah.
And just as an aside, Albert shouldn't be taking breaks during my segment.
Yeah, Albert, I really don't know why he would.
Albert, thank you.
Now, Albert, play, if you would, please, this clip. Again, some are familiar with it, but okay, go ahead.
If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. I was somebody, we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, because look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country. Because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be taking in trillions of dollars And as much as childcare is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people. But we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. It's about make America great again. We have to do it because right now we're a failing nation. So we'll take care of it. Thank you.
He winds himself back to the applause line. So mad respect for that, like a good performer. But this is the dance he does, you know.
It is, and it's a dance that obviously has the people who support him in his throes. I mean, he's not going to lose those people. And Donald Trump's challenge, as we've discussed here a lot, is that he has to get people that he wasn't able to get in 2020 and still hold his coalition. I personally don't see how he can do that. I don't see him. I think there's a fatigue, and I think there's a difficulty he's going to have in winning people over for whom abortion has become an issue over the past few years. And so I do think it's going to be a struggle for him to win the election. That said, he does do the things he does well, and that he's able to look. He just spoke to these people, made no sense. He said they're going to cut the deficits, right? He doesn't say how. He's going to cut government waste. He doesn't say how, other than the Elon Musk thing that we talked about earlier. But, to say within a few years, those are pie in the sky promises, knowing what our national debt is and knowing what the cost of running this country is. So it's all fantasy, but people like buying into fantasy.
Yeah, and I guess for me, and this is, maybe it's not important, but we kind of went around on this in the first hour. It's about, there's sort of this, ascribing it to mental decline, and this incoherence is related to his general sense that, he can find himself lost in his own thoughts and unable. I thought it was just a guy who didn't know what the hell they were talking about, so he just defaulted to a bunch of things that he also doesn't really understand, but he's just BSing. I feel like you've known Trump through the years and decades, and you've seen him do this dance. Now, he, I'm sure, has lost a few steps mentally, and you see him now slurring a bit and doing all of this sort of stuff that you might expect from an aging guy. But I thought that one was just a word salad because he was BSing his way to an applause line.
He was. He didn't know the answer to the question. He hadn't thought about childcare, really. I don't know what Marco Rubio and Ivanka Trump did, but if they did such great things, then there wouldn't be somebody there asking a question about what are you going to do about childcare, because it would have been resolved. So I have no clue why he brought up Rubio and Ivanka. He probably had some word association going on, but he doesn't have an answer to that question. He doesn't have to have an answer. When you're running for president, you're asked a lot of things that you don't know exactly. This just happens too much with Donald Trump, and he does do this kind of. He sort of gives a little speech, and then he comes back to America first and make America great. It's like he's looking for his security blanket, and then he finally finds it and he grabs it.
This Chris LaCivita, is that how he says his last name?
LaCivita, yeah.
Yeah. LaCivita is the guy who did these really swift-boated carry and found ways to essentially smear a guy who'd actually gone to Vietnam and could have gotten out of service to Vietnam.
It's a great effect, by the way.
It swung the election. It was just a remarkable thing, a thing that it was almost, it took these falsehoods and this crazy attack ad kind of strategy to high art. So now he is doing this as a senior campaign advisor to Donald Trump, and has been beginning. If you can, he has begun. He's begun. Thank you. He's begun the process of dirtying up Kamala Harris as a liberal DA. Victim's blood is on her hands, this kind of thing. They're nasty ads. I wonder if you can speak to how effective you think they'll be in the places that matter.
Presidential campaigns have nasty ads in them. I mean, this is the big time, right? And the Democrats are doing dirty things not dirty. I mean, they're framing their arguments in ways that are biting. And they're exaggerating, and they're bringing attention to things that they're bringing big attention to things that may have been minor. I don't have a problem with it in that that's what presidential elections are like now. I wish it were better, right? I mean, but it's to be expected. It's the stuff that isn't true. It's the demeaning stuff that isn't true or made up out of whole cloth. Like the Swift boat thing was really ugly. And this is ugly, but this is a presidential race going after the candidate for, their record on different things, as the Democrats are doing with Donald Trump for getting out of, serving in the military, for whatever it is. And I'm not apologizing for anything Trump's done. I just think this is the way presidential elections are. So go ahead.
You're making a distinction, though, between those things that are phonied up and those things that are just showcased and amplified in ads.
Correct. But also, I think what you do is you see, if a Republican voted on, let's say, there was a pro-tobacco thing inside of a defense spending bill as a rider, right? And a senator voted on it. Whoever was running against that senator say this guy's pro-tobacco, but it could have been on a defense cutting bill. It could have been on, who knows, but somebody attached a rider to it. So you look at these little things that people have done in their career that, that flirt with being true, but are not really the intent of that person. And you run with it. And that happens so much in politics because there people are on the record about so much now.
Just for the record, when it comes to spending for ads, Harris should be able to outspend Trump. I mean, to the extent that you can, wedge those spends into media buys, right?
For sure. No, and I would expect that's going to happen by the end of this. And also how people get their ads now, how they're delivered. So many of them are targeted to people who are already in the camp of the person that the ad is going against, right? So the people that are looking at Vote Vets ads, right, which are, it's a sort of a Democratic-leaning veterans organization that have done some biting ads against the former president. When they do that, man, they're amazing ads, but who's watching them and who's spreading them and sharing them? Probably people who are already against Trump. So the effect that ads have, if you're watching football on Sunday and they're battling ads there, those are the ones that are, to me, most effective, because if you're a Democrat or a Republican, you're watching football on Sunday, you're going to see the other side and you can say, oh, really? Kamala Harris did that, or Donald Trump really did that? I mean, that's where to me, they have the greatest effect.
Sure. I get these ads sent to me that are like a minute and a half long. They come out of the Lincoln Project or whatever, and a minute and a half long, that's never going to air anywhere. No. Even a minute probably won't air anywhere. So
it certainly won't air on TV, but a lot of people are not,
Sure. And you're hoping that they'll get a virality and get shared. But I'm saying 90 seconds, Michael Shore, even you would go, well, you know what, I tuned out after 60,
Yeah, well, right. Well, that's like I do with this, right? What are we talking about?
Last thing I want to ask you is Stephen A. Smith, the host of First Take, one of the great mouths in all of sports analysis and punditry, is getting into politics, Michael Shore. He is, getting into political punditry, I should be clear. He's not running for political office. Stephen A. Smith is showing up on various news programs, including News Nation's Cuomo, Fox News' Hannity, and ABC News' This Week. He is also beginning a non-sports podcast, potentially.
What?
With iHeart Podcast. Yes, he'll start with the...
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
That's right. He sometimes he talks first and asks questions later. But any thoughts? He is the highest paid, or at least one of the highest paid on-air talents in sports media today.
Yeah, I would believe that. I mean, look, if political talk, needs anything, it needs more people doing it, right? I don't, I wish him well. I don't watch him a lot. I don't mind him. I know people are really opinionated about him. I'm not. I'm opinionated about a lot of people, but he's not one. Like I'll watch him if he's on, but I'm not going to seek him out. I don't know which way he leans or if he's just talking about it and talking about issues. But I think somebody who can get people, especially sports fans, into politics because they're so similar, sports and politics, and somebody who could bridge that, maybe there's room for them. I don't have a huge opinion. You make America great. America first. See how I did that? I didn't really have an answer.
Very well done.
Back to my talking points. Yeah.
I love it. I love our time together, and I'm hoping for a lot of interesting insight from you. I don't want to, again, put too much pressure on you, but there is the big, quote, debate TV show coming up.
Yeah. I could maybe come on Wednesday. How about that?
That would be great. Would you come on Wednesday?
I've never been invited. Well, is Albert on break still, or is
Albert? Thank you.
Albert, can Michael Shore come on Wednesday?
Yeah, of course. Yes, and I'll make sure to save my break time for my show.
Albert, thank you.
Since it'll
All right,
be,
so you've heard it.
Since it'll be me on Wednesday, can I have you on Wednesday and Friday, like a double Shore?
Oh, yeah, it'll be double Shore. But Kim is right. I will be on the road, but I will join from the road. So she thinks it'll just be her, but actually it's going to be her and me. So sorry, Kim, but I'm wrestling Michael Shore from you.
I can't shake this guy. All right.
No, I will be joining. I'm not giving up the Wednesday after that debate mess or whatever it's going to be. So,
Kim, how are you?
So we'll both query you, Michael, about your thoughts on the debate next
Look
Wednesday.
forward to being queried.
Okay. Thoughts on the Niners?
They signed the most important player on the team. That's Trent Williams, and that was good. They spent a lot of money. Thank goodness Ricky Pearsall's okay. I'm excited. I'm excited again. I hope the play calling changes a little bit, but Shanahan's generally don't change a lot, and I think that they need to a little bit. But let's see. I mean, I'm
Michael Shore, excited yet sounds a little anxious and worried. I don't know.
I'm not anxious. I just want they didn't
frustrated maybe.
Take it up. A little bit frustrated with the play calling, but again, I'll be there. I'll be pulling for them, and I'll find something to complain about.
All right, Michael Shore, everybody. Thank you. Bye, Michael.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on, everybody. It's our Friday show. We're swinging into the last half hour. I'm excited about it myself. There is a real sense of excitement and anticipation, if I can use that word. When you put excitement and anticipation together, you have how I feel moving into the next 25 to 30 minutes. Now, in the next 25 to 30 minutes, I'm expecting a visit from the culture blaster, Michael Snyder, who'll be reviewing films. He's going to review the new Beetlejuice movie. What's old is new again, I guess, in Beetlejuice land. Rebel Ridge, The Deliverance. I'm seeing all of these that he's going to get to. And some TV projects and streaming projects. Albert, would you like to go to Kim's News for a Turbo Newscast and then to Michael Shore?
Oh.
I mean, to Michael Snyder?
Yes, I'd love a Turbo News, and I love to make Michael Snyder earn it. We like to really pad everything in there before his segment. So
yeah, this is Friday. We can go a little bit later. I have an appointment, as you might imagine. I'm a very busy man.
Do you know who I am?
I'm
kind of a big deal.
But I would like a little bit of news. I'm buoyed emotionally, intellectually, by Kim's news offerings. And so it's in that spirit that I would like Kim to offer up some news. I also wanted to recognize some great, can I just quickly do this? PayPal people. Terrence, $10 a month. And Brian, $25 a month. And all of these, I'm looking on down the way at, significant. I look forward to your show every day. It brings me joy. Love to hear your perspective on politics, as well as Kim, Albert, and Tony. The entire format is fabulous. From Molly. Yeah. Molly sent us $100, which is really, really cool. A big shout out to Molly and everybody on PayPal.
Big shout out.
Yeah. Scott says, last weekend we celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. Thanks again for the way you inform and entertain us. Big shout out to Scott and his bride. 50 years. Wow. Great show, great crew, great guests. Thanks. A 25 from Robin.
Big shout out.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robin.
Really, really cool. Thank you guys on PayPal and Terry and Bradley and Karen and all of you who have been part of things. And that's just a sliver. Really appreciate your support. There's also our great Patreon crew. I'll try to get some of those names in as well as we continue. We're running late, but I did want to take a moment and thank you all for the support. Wes, always a supporter, $5 super sticker.
Big
thank
shout
you.
out.
Yeah, and we're super backed up on these. Some of these come back from the first hour. I didn't want to interrupt your Anthony Davis conversation, though. So
$10 from Spencer.
Big
Thank
shout
you. Sounds like a Trump fan. I think he's making that sarcastically. Don't know. Dennis Fahey, a $10 super chat. Social media is causing misinformation to go viral with 1 million thoughtless shares. It's the curse of democracy. Of course, that's true. Both the magic of social media and this world is, meaning the digital world, is the way in which you can get information out, but you can also get disinformation out. And then there's that gray area. What's disinformation? What's interpreted information? What's total falsehood? Trevor Starr in Hollywood.
Big shout out.
I'd like to know if Anthony can do a convincing American accent that doesn't sound like Alabama or Boston, as many Britishers do. Well, we'll ask him next time. Thank you, Trevor. Appreciate that. No Contendo. Has the female federal COVID director spoken up about Trump? No. I haven't. I don't think you're talking about Birx. Is that her last name? Deborah Birx? Was that her? Right? Nobody? Just me? You guys are going to leave me hanging out?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Supposing you brought the light inside the body.
Yeah, she had to stand off to the side. No Contendo says Stephen A. Smith has been scolded several times by Roland Martin, Unfiltered, Steve Harvey, and other accredited black news outlets. He isn't an expert. Well, in this environment, no Contendo. Frankly, I think he's as much of an expert as many. We need a good Anthony Davis drop. It's true.
Big shout out.
It's true. We'll get one. All right, now we really have to get Turbo, and then the great culture blaster, Michael. Are you okay, Michael, with the wait? You're not angry? I mean, you don't.
Whatever it takes, Mark.
You seem a little annoyed. Are you going to be okay to wait?
It's the heat.
All right. I'm going to chill out. Culture Blaster, Kim's News. Smash the like button. Thank you guys for being here. It's our big Friday show. We're excited to have you here, and there's more to come. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. Man, did they make some good wine or what? First story to tell you about is Donald Trump and the sentencing in the New York hush money case that we were set to get in just a couple of weeks has now been delayed until after the election. The former president was scheduled to be sentenced September 18th for his felony conviction connected to payments made to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. Trump's attorneys successfully arguing to postpone this sentencing so that they can create an appeal related to the Supreme Court ruling about presidential immunity. The suspect in the Georgia school shooting and his father.
By the way, I didn't mean to neglect that. That's huge, obviously. Everything, all details, all the evidentiary aspects of that trial now completely pushed to after the election. Go ahead.
Suspect in the Georgia school shooting and his father are both behind bars. Neither have entered pleas. In court appearances today, the judge told the 14-year-old suspected shooter he could face life in prison without the possibility of parole. His father appeared in court shortly after to be arraigned on multiple charges, including second-degree murder. Prosecutors say the teen killed 4 people and injured 9 others at Appalachia High School in the small community of Winder on Wednesday.
Well, the father gave him the gun. I mean, that's the reason the father's being accused. It's absolutely crazy. That family is an utter train wreck. And you add a 14-year-old with a gun to that, and you have the predictable, tragic, horrifying results.
The start of early voting in North Carolina is being delayed. Mail-in absentee ballots will not be sent until a legal battle plays out involving Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The Independent wants his name removed in support of former President Trump. A court has granted Kennedy's motion for the time being. The former presidential candidate sued to remove his name after the state board of elections decided to keep it, since more than 1 million ballots had already been printed with his name on it. Voters are getting a say when it comes to forced labor in California prisons. Close to half of the state's 90,000 inmates are assigned a job, most earning less than 74 cents an hour. But a new proposition on the November ballot aims to stop them from being punished in this way. It calls for volunteer work programs that would give credits to reduce sentences and have local jails create a pay scale for those behind bars.
You can make the big money behind bars. Is that what you're saying? That's the new side hustle. Get arrested.
You can work.
Bars.
You got nothing else to do in there. You know, might as well. I think, do you think they should be paid at all?
Well, it's a token payment. I think working with prison terms is good, or certain freedoms or privileges within the institution make more sense. But I mean, maybe you need to pay them something. I think that those prisoners on the front line, those are front line of firefighting, is what I'm going to say. Those are those who fall into certain special categories. Maybe that compensation should be looked at. But I think right now we're in a token payment situation, and I suspect that anything we come up with, from my standpoint, would still be in that space,
California lawmakers have approved 2 bills designed to protect wildlife. The first bill, also known as the Room to Roam Act, requires cities to think about how their development plans might affect wildlife. The second bill, called the Poison-Free Wildlife Act, puts certain limits on certain types of rat poison to help safeguard animals. This includes making it harder to buy these poisons and reducing their use in places where wildlife may live. The bills are now waiting for Governor Gavin Newsom's signatures. The 17-year-old accused of shooting a San Francisco 49ers rookie says he's sorry. Is that a my bad, I'm sorry? I don't think it's an I stand corrected.
No, it's not.
No.
It's at best, and I think it's.
Is it? I vow to do better. I don't know what kind. I don't know.
It was wrong. It was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Yeah, he was arraigned yesterday for attempted
Mark,
murder.
your mic is muted. I'm not sure if you're saying anything.
Police claim that this.
My mic was muted.
Yeah,
but,
it was
Albert
muted.
did. That was by accident. Yeah. But Albert chose the precisely correct apology, and it's insufficient. So. It's insufficient, though. Yeah.
Police claim he tried to rob Ricky Pearsall of his Rolex watch Saturday. As Pearsall walked to his car in Union Square, the football player fought back. He was shot in the chest. The high school senior was also shot in the arm and arrested a block away. His attorney says the boy regrets what happened and is trying to keep the case in juvenile court. We know Pearsall is going to be okay, but he'll miss at least 4 games this season.
You can buy a Movado watch in Sam's.
Now, that's a good point. He could have just gone to Sam's to get the Movado watch.
Speaking of football, the state of California taking new action to protect kids in tackle football. A summit was held last week to discuss how to make the game safer. Players, parents, healthcare providers, other experts all gathered to give feedback. This will guide next steps in reviewing California's laws to see if maybe more protocols are needed.
You know how to really protect those kids from football injuries? Don't let them play football.
There you go.
Sorry.
No tackle football for you.
I love football. Football. But I'm telling you, man, all the latest studies show you that even on incidental contact, you're scrambling your brain a little bit.
Lastly, so we can get to our entertainment culture
And
blaster.
I know a little something about scrambling your brain. Go ahead.
My.
Yeah.
A Central California school principal is accepting a lower position now after a controversial dance at a school pep rally. During this event in the school gym, Buhach Colony High School principal Robert Nunes is seen sitting in a chair while the school's mascot appears to give him a lap dance. Nunes then pops a confetti cannon while the mascot dances around him.
Albert, please.
If that wasn't enough, The two then switch places with Mr. Nunes performing a similar dance for the mascot.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
Man.
Mr. Nunes is now an associate principal instead of the principal. Downgraded. Several parents in the Merced County community of Atwater want him fired instead of just downgraded. Maybe not the best judgment on the lap dance. Ixnay on the lap dance for the school pep rally.
Day, sir.
This report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards. They've got the I Love Lucy Grape Stomp. It is so fun, and the events will be underway on Sundays, September 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, the 29th. They've got more grape stomps coming in October. You go there, you get a mimosa, you go cut some of the grapes right off the vine. You go back, you have a little lunch. They have a great spread, and then you take off your shoes and you hop in the grape stomping bucket and you squish, squish, squish. So fun.
Kim's really got an afternoon
family
going over
members.
there.
I'm telling you, this is fantastic. Really good. The I Love Lucy Grape Stomp at Tenuta.
It's fantastic.
Okay, it is fantastic.
Tenuta Winery. Check it out on the website.
It was great. I loved it.
Okay.
TenutaWinery.com. You can call and book your spot 925-699-4576. Talk to Rich. Tell him smash it with your iron rod. You get 10% off. Done.
Oh, you get 10% off the grape stomp too?
You get 10% off across the board. Any
Wow.
event,
Smashed it
anything
with
you
your
buy,
iron rod.
Wow.
anything. This is the way it is with the Mark Thompson Show discount. You are
I
a
love
VIP at Tenuta Vineyards.
Wow.
So again, 925-699-4576. You can also
Morning.
email Rich as well, and that is rich@tenutavineyards.com. It's going to be really fun. So grab a friend, grab some family members, grab some coworkers, and go stomp some grapes.
Listen to Kim. She's excited.
I know. I want
Me
to go
too.
stomp some grapes.
All
We
right,
should
baby.
have a Mark Thompson Show team building
I'd
event.
love to do that. I'm a grape stomper from a long time.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
I'd
Oh,
love
yes,
it.
there is.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it should be great.
It's the Mark Thompson Show.
Mm-hmm. Snyder, I'm not going to make you wait through a long sweeper anymore.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thanks for being here. Thank you for that turbo newscast, Kim. We are running way late, Snyder. I'm so sorry. And I have an appointment, as you might imagine, because I'm a very busy, important person.
Do you know who I am?
I am.
I'm kind of a big deal.
I did want to mention, though, the shout outs to the people who are our regular donors on PayPal and also on Patreon. These are all PayPal people, but I just am so grateful, and we're trying to make ends meet, and things are up and down with YouTube. So I really appreciate the many people who help us meet payroll: Larry and Paul and Dale and Sheila, Jennifer and Irene. And people have been with us since the very beginning. You know who you are, Marilyn, and many more. Those are that's just a handful of those who are with us, and we so appreciate it. Robert and Karen, Terry. I could go on, Michael Snyder, but I'm not going to, because I know that you are waiting. But I am going to just say again, I'm very grateful for all of you who find us through PayPal and Patreon and support that community of people who ultimately lead to us continuing this work. So very much appreciated. So thank you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This guy is amazing. No film is too bizarre, too scary, too foreign. No franchise is too comic book or superhero for this guy. He's immersed in all of it. The writer and the critic who regularly comes here on Fridays. He is someone who comes and goes on a rainbow. The magnificent culture blaster, Michael Snyder, everybody.
Hey, Mark. Hi, Kim. Hi, Albert. And hello, audience members. We love you. So glad that you're sticking it out to the bitter end on a Friday, shunted into the corner at the very last soup song of the Mark Thompson Show every week. Yeah, it's the Culture Blast. By the way, speaking of blast, the heat in Los Angeles, I split my time between LA and San Francisco.
Oh,
The
yes.
heat, we're in the low 100s. And,
it is brutal.
Oh, my God. And it felt so New York last night. Out at my place, it was like 95 degrees at midnight. I was, what? Climate change is real, people. And, I'll tell you what, that Isaac Hayes song, By the Time I Get to Phoenix? You know that one? I felt like I was in Phoenix. Let's put it that way. That's how hot it is. By the way, I paid attention to you and Michael Shore and your little segment earlier, your Politichat, whatever you want to call it, Politic Talk.
Oh, I like Politichat. That's clever.
That's nice. Anyway, I am so excited for Tuesday's big premiere of Mad Don Beyond Thunderdome. I am so thrilled about this with the useful idiot of the 1% as Mad Don, and of course Kamala Harris as Tina Turner.
Wow.
Two enter, one leaves. I'm thrilled about this big debate on Tuesday.
Man,
there's always been in this country 30 to 35% idiots.
All right, for sure. One quick sad note before we get on to the movies. Sergio Mendes.
Loved him.
Has passed away here in Los Angeles as of yesterday at the age of 83. He was the leader of Sergio Mendes in Brazil 66, who helped introduce bossa nova music to American popular culture in the 60s and 70s. His covers of Antonio Carlos Jobim's songs were fantastic. They did a version of the Beatles' Fool on the Hill. I was a big fan as a kid. I continue to be a fan. Sergio Mendes.
And then once he passed 66, Brazil 66, he made it Brazil 77, didn't he?
He did what he had to do to stay in the public eye.
I loved it.
Anyway, a big fan. All right, let's kick things off here with Beetlejuice.
It was great. I loved it.
Okay, we've moved on.
Beetlejuice, come on. The juice is loose again 36 years after director Tim Burton's rollicking horror comedy Beetlejuice. There is finally a sequel featuring three of the original actors returning to their roles, and crucially, they are Michael Keaton as prankster demon Beetlejuice, who wants to actually manifest on this plane of being. Winona Ryder as the goth ingenue and ghost whisperer Lydia Dietz, who is coveted by Beetlejuice and maybe his means to stay on this plane of being, at least in the first movie, and maybe even in this one.
Coveted, okay. Yeah.
And Catherine O'Hara, the great Catherine O'Hara. You loved her on SCTV and Schitt's Creek. She's back as Lydia's artsy, self-absorbed stepmother, Delia. Although there's a macabre and amusing workaround, we don't see Lydia's father, who was played by the now disgraced actor Jeffrey Jones in the original. We also don't see Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis as the married couple Adam and Barbara Maitland, who are significant to the first movie. And instead, we catch up to Lydia many years later. She can still see dead people, and she now hosts a popular paranormal reality TV show and is a single mom to her skeptical teenage daughter, played by Wednesday Addams herself from the Burton-produced TV show Wednesday. It's Jenna Ortega, kind of a similar role.
Sure.
Dour, dark, amusingly
macabre,
so.
By the way, isn't it?
Yeah. To the movie's credit, it features very enthusiastic and committed performances, including new turns by Monica Bellucci as Beetlejuice's spurned, stitched-together afterlife mate, who ain't crazy about her old flame's obsession with Lydia. Willem Dafoe as a dead detective, Justin Theroux as the producer of Lydia's TV show and her boyfriend, Danny DeVito as another Land of the Dead denizen.
Chock this thing full of stars, haven't they?
Also, Bern Gorman, who you may know from Torchwood or The Hour out of the UK. He plays a church minister. There's excellent art direction and some killer gags and hilarious set pieces. One major musical number is almost as much fun as the first movie's embrace of Harry Belafonte's Deo and Jump in the Line, shake, 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 sonora. But the script meanders, and it veers close to tumbling down a few gaping plot holes. And yet, the idea of Beetlejuice coming back to this plane of being for, plot reasons is fun. And although it ain't your granddad's Beetlejuice, it is a lot of fun.
Oh, you enjoyed it, even though you felt it was a little. There were some shortcomings.
Exactly. I'd call it a ghoulish goulash.
Huh?
And, I think people that love the first movie are going to enjoy this. At the screening, there were lots of younger people cosplaying as Beetlejuice and Lydia. I thought that was kind of indicative of how this is going to be received.
Wow. It was great. I loved it.
It's had a long and beloved life as a property via streaming, and it's back in theaters. Beetlejuice. I want you to remember, Mark, that if you say Candyman 3 times, he shows up. And the same goes for Beetlejuice.
Oh,
So
I didn't. I've got to remember that. Thank you.
Don't repeat his name in sequence. It's not greatness, but I just enjoyed watching it. It was fun, and that counts for a lot in this world, I think.
Let me just interrupt on the heels of that fun. B.O., who is our viewer listener in Chicago, says, not been on live since last wonderful meetup to put in my tip. He donates $25 to the show. So many VIPs that viewers spoke a little less, but all good. Big thanks, Mark, Courtney, Kim, Albert, and Tony, Katz, Mankiewicz, Michael Snyder, who is with us right now, Avila, Shore, and more. Thank you, B.O., for that. We loved you, and we love having you as part of our meetups.
Those Zoom meetups are an absolute blast. I can't wait for the next one. Moving on, I'm always so pleased to come upon an unheralded movie that turns out to be spellbinding and intricate and ultimately very satisfying to watch. They are actually kind of rare for direct-to-streaming movies, but Rebel Ridge is a truly excellent mix of action and drama from Netflix. That starts with one uncomfortable incident and then springboards to another, building from situation to complication as the revelations and thrills mount. There's a smart and
situation, complication, revelations. What was it? That was a Temptation song, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Ball of Confusion.
There's a smart script with really thoughtful dialogue and a phenomenally assured and charismatic performance from Aaron Pierre, who I recognize from a few TV shows, including Krypton and a couple movies, particularly Foe with Saoirse Ronan and Paul Mescal. Pierre plays Terry, a man whose visit to a small southern town to bail his cousin out of jail is derailed in a major way. So over the course of Terry's quest, we learn that he is not the ordinary fellow that he initially seems. In fact, he may very well have, thank you, Liam Neeson, a certain set of skills.
Oh.
That said, he runs afoul of the local constabulary and small-town bureaucracy. He's confronted by a self-serving chief of police, played with very nasty relish by Don Johnson. And he's looked upon with some degree of sympathy by a local court clerk, played by Anna Sophia Robb. The rest of the ensemble is right on the beam and even features a well-known and revered character actor as a local judge, that being James Cromwell of L.A. Confidential, Babe, Star Trek First Contact, and HBO's 6 Feet Under. To be honest, I thought I'd be in for a treat since the movie was written and directed by Jeremy Saulnier. He's the filmmaker behind Blue Ruin, which is also a small-town noir thriller, and Green Room, which is essentially the story of punk rockers played by Anton Yelchin and Aliyah Shawkat, and a young woman played by Imogen Poots, who are pitted against a group of white supremacists in rural Oregon, led by a very much playing against type Patrick Stewart. Green Room is a trip and a half, and I was right to be excited about Rebel Ridge. It may be even better and a more assured piece of work than those other films.
Wow, you really liked it.
Rebel Ridge is a really good film. These are not big budget bangers. They're just clever, fine-tuned, and emotionally engaging movies that deserve audiences that would otherwise be wasting their time and money on those higher profile efforts. And you can watch this thing right now on Netflix. Rebel Ridge is my big I enjoyed Beetlejuice, but Rebel Ridge.
Wow, you're really plus. I never have to get off the couch. Constabulary is a ding word.
Let's wrap up the movie segment by talking about a film that's been on Netflix for a couple of weeks. It's kind of a Netflix skewed segment today, I guess. The Deliverance, not to be confused with Deliverance, although in both movies someone squeals like a pig. I have to say, I had high hopes for this. It's directed by Lee Daniels, who co-wrote the script. He's the guy behind Precious, the big Oscar winner.
Oh, sure.
And The Butler with Forrest Whitaker as the White House.
Oh, my God,
aide-de-camp.
yeah. So this is going to be great, is it?
No. By the way, it's hilarious.
What?
Despite it being kind of a clunker. It's inspired by a true story. I mean, aren't they all? It's set in Pittsburgh in the early 2010s. And in this movie, Andra Day plays biracial single mom Ebony Jackson. Yeah, I know, that's a pretty obvious name. And she has 3 kids by a man who was deployed in Iraq. She has a drinking problem and a checkered past, and a church-going white mama played by Glenn Close, the Glenn Close. So they've all recently moved into a rundown house in a borderline Pittsburgh neighborhood.
Deployed is a dingword, by the way. Yeah.
Money is tight, especially since grandma is on chemo. Things get worse when a malevolent force in the house begins to torment them all. And Close is pretty game here.
So they don't know what it is. It's just a malevolent force.
As soon you find out what it is.
I see. Okay.
You know, I kept thinking maybe they should have called this thing The Blaxorcist, or, I don't know, Inner City Haunted House.
Oh, I see.
But Close goes fully bonkers in 1/3 act sequence. The dialogue is beyond outlandish and coarse. The story is a brain explosion as you're watching it, and you're going, is this really happening on screen? And is it really inspired by a true story? In any case, it's one of those, it's a kind of a guilty pleasure because it's so nutty and over the top.
Wow.
Again,
I can watch it right now
on Netflix. It is not a good movie, but it is like, what? It's one of those films where I'm like watching it going, should I turn it off? Should I continue watching?
Can you smart-ass your way through it? Is it a good one for smart-ass comments?
Oh,
we like to do that.
I would say so. In fact, there were a few times when, and forgive me for cultural appropriation, I actually said out loud by myself while watching it, "Oh, no, she didn't." Anyway, The Deliverance is on Netflix. Let me just say that Rebel Ridge is a much better movie.
So your pick of those 3, these are the feature films.
Yes.
Rebel Ridge, then Beetlejuice, and The Deliverance is just what might be a fun indulgence, but know what you're getting,
Right,
which is just a fun indulgence.
One additional Netflix note, and then one other TV show. Chaos is a limited series on Netflix.
I saw it with Jeff Goldblum or something?
Jeff Goldblum plays Zeus. Janet McTeer plays Hera. It's presuming that Greek gods really exist and are worshipped in this sort of alternate world of ours. And it's set between Olympus and Crete, which is a thriving city with a lot of god worshippers. And again, it's a modern setting. And it's all about the machinations of the gods and the way the humans interact. And there is a Eurydice and an Orpheus in Crete, and various offspring of Zeus and his many mates are in the pantheon of the gods, and they're all not crazy about Zeus, and he's incredibly paranoid about a prophecy. And I enjoyed the hell out of this thing.
Really? Okay.
Chaos.
I saw the trailer. I didn't know what to make of it. Okay.
It's fun. Even better, Series 4 of Slow Horses just dropped its first episode on Apple TV, all about the intrigue at MI5 in London as the outcasts of the spy agency, led by Gary Oldman's hilariously slovenly Jackson Lamb, are in their own little location in London called Slough House, and that's why they're called the Slow Horses, as they kind of do their best to do their jobs, which in this case, again, deals with terrorism in London and the people that may or may not be behind it.
Sure.
Jack Lowden is back as River. Cartwright, who is sort of the second in command at Slough House. Oldman is hilarious. Kristen Scott Thomas is always a joy to watch. She plays the boss over at MI5, and Jonathan Pryce as a retired spy.
Isn't that great? He's so talented.
And the grandfather of Jack Lowden's River Cartwright, he's back. It is an embarrassment of riches on the acting front, and fun, espionage, craziness. Slow Horses Series 4 started on Apple TV this week. Can't wait for the next step.
I've heard good things about it too, just from civilians who don't quite have the critic's eye that you do, but I've heard very good things.
Based on the books by Mick Herron, and let me say, my pal Hugh Brown says the books are absolutely great, and he loves the show too. He thinks these are terrific adaptations.
Slow Horses, season 4, he loves it. Chaos, he really enjoyed that too. That's the Zeus and the other Greek gods handling the Greek worship as it comes in, and with their own human, it sounds like, insecurities.
Yes, a satirical comedy.
The Deliverance is the fun inner city urban experience that involves some force in the house that they have to figure out. He says, Michael does, it's not a good movie, but there's something about it that just makes you want to keep watching. So
the campiness, I can't even. Glenn Close at one point seriously starts chewing scenery. I mean, I believe she's actually chewing on some of the scenery.
Rebel Ridge is his pick. He says it is a winner. You can see it on Netflix. It's not a big studio movie. It's a small movie, but it's really good. And Michael recommends it. Beetlejuice is just the opposite. It's a big movie. A lot of big stars are back. And it seems as though Michael liked it, not as much as Rebel Ridge, but he did like it. Does Lauren Boebert show up if you say Beetlejuice is what Agolf is asking.
I really don't know, but in that case, a little too much juice and maybe not enough beetle.
I've adored Michael since 1989, says D. Jones. Isn't that great, Michael? You have
oh my God, when I was a 7-year-old. How is this even possible?
Wow.
No, it's great to hear that. Hey,
if I say Trump backwards 3 times, does he go away? Says Luis. Very good.
One can only dream.
Yeah. Green Room and Blue Ruin were very good. Indeed,
yes.
Somebody else said that.
Thank you for the support of Saulnier's work, or Saulnier, whatever. I'm not even sure how to pronounce his name, but he is a filmmaker to be reckoned with.
Cousin Erie says the ding word thing is just irritating.
Michael agrees.
Okay, well, maybe we'll have to get rid of it.
The other thing I'm excited about, by the way, going back to San Francisco, talk about temperature envy. I'm going to be up there for a number of weeks while you're in D.C. It'll be me and Kim next Friday, albeit remote. But I'm really thrilled that the NFL is back. Monday night, the Jets versus the 49ers.
Yeah.
That Ricky Pearsall thing was nuts. I know one of our big slogans as 49er fans is bang, bang, Niner gang. We didn't mean it that way. No, sir.
I see. With that, you went through all of that just to get that line in?
Not at all. Because
the guy almost died in a shooting of Union Square. How dare you? How dare you make fun of him?
Don't color me with an ugly brush like that. I am a 49er fan for life, buddy.
Seriously, what the
You are. You are, truly. You can find Michael Snyder here on Fridays, but apart from that, he is at the Voice of San Francisco. Albert is putting up that information now, if Albert hasn't left the building. Find Michael Snyder at thevoicesf.org. You can find him here on Fridays. He comes and goes on a rainbow. Bye-bye, Michael.
Go, Ricky. Go, Niners. Woo!
The Mark Thompson Show.
Shout out to Kathy. Wow, Kathy Crowell. Thank you for leaving us with a $10 super chat. Love you guys. Happy Friday. Bye-bye.
Big shout out.
Really, really cool. I'm sadly going to have to wrap things up unless there's some other thing that I need to handle. Albert and Kim.
Nothing here.
No one's really responding with a kind of...
We are. I think we're done. Yeah.
Next week, I will be on the road, but I will be joining from the road. In fact, I just got some equipment in that I'm learning how to use that Tony told me to get that'll allow me to join from the road. So maybe even a host from the road. I don't know. We got to work it out. Oh. But it is a significant week in the ramp up from a political standpoint. So we'll talk about that. It is hot in California and all over the West. I mean, I'd say, historically, knocking down records, all part of the roiling that the planet is doing. So
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah, literally, we've never been anything. But Have a good weekend all. Do go to the after party with Kim. She is one that we love and we like to support her, so you will enjoy that. And until...
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Next week, we will join you from the road. It'll be exciting. Thanks, Albert. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.